Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Living NLP podcast, everyone. My name is Nicholas Rave. This is...
We are all Morgan Lane Bennett.
We will be soon.
Yes.
And here in this podcast, Morgan and I meet every week-ish to sit down and do kind of what we used to do on our own anyway, which is talk shop. And this podcast is not intended for NLP and hypnosis beginners. We don't really teach a lot and we don't explain a lot of terminology, but what this is for people who already have some knowledge and understanding of NLP and want to be in the trenches with people. So we structure the podcast by sharing an anecdote each about some way that we've utilized NLP or hypnosis in our own personal lives and or with clients. And then we share a quote that we find inspiring and then discuss it. And then our favorite thing is to answer questions. So if you're watching this and you have any burning questions about hypnosis or NLP or life or anything in general, put those questions down in the doobly-doo, and we will get to them either in this podcast or if we see them, if you're watching this sometime in the future, we will get to them in our next podcast. We actually do have a question this time, which I'm excited to get to at the end. But to start, Morgan, what's your anecdote this week?
My anecdote. So I don't particularly watch politics, presidential debates. But last night,
is this what we're going to talk about?
Last night, well, we're only going to talk about an NLP way because I think both of them are assholes to different degrees and in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I think they both also have certain things that I agree with to certain degrees in certain ways. Well, I mean, they're not all, neither one of them are all wrong. I think there's a lot wrong with each of them.
From an NLP perspective, what you just said means nothing. Like, of course you could say that about anybody.
Nothing means anything.
You're right.
Podcast's over.
Yeah, no. But I'm saying, like, so keep going.
Yes. So, point being, these people both have things to say, and I was going in watching it. Okay, I'm going to pretend like I don't know anything. I don't know who the fuck what. I'm just going to see what these two guys are going to stand next to each other and talk and say. And from the get-go, right out the gate, our current president, whose name shall not be mentioned, was the most belligerent, bullish, disrespectful person, while unfortunately saying a couple things that I agree with. You know, he's going to point. It's basically all of NLP communication, your communications, the meaning of the communications, response you get, tone, all of that shit, feedback. No, he was just like, this is what I'm saying, and I'm going to say it, you're a fucking asshole, you're that. And then, like, not letting the moderator go, okay, sir, it's your time. No, you don't understand it. No, like, complete disregard and disrespect for the situation,
right?
For the decorum, for any level of, like, just decency about saying the things. Because he could have just said this, and this, and this. And it would have been really hard for Sleepy Joe to not, he basically just made the other guy look good by looking like such a dick. He said things that, well, some of them I disagree with. So the things that I did agree with, somewhat, he said like a complete asshole.
Right.
At which point I'm like, no, I can't agree with that asshole. Yeah. You can't agree with that asshole. Kind of like the people on the other end who think Black Lives Matter and all that stuff is great, but then want to burn a business down. I'm like, no, I can't agree with you if you're going to be like, it's that the way you're saying the thing you're saying is turning me off. Right. And I think it's turning other people off. And it was just, I'm not saying I would have agreed with him more one way or the other, but to see somebody utterly fail to communicate that in a way that could be heard, first of all, it reminded me of me a lot. And projection. How is this like me? I was like, oh shit, he's like fucking such a cocky dickhead, such a bombastic asshole. So like, we're the fucking man. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure, whatever. Like complete disrespect for the whole situation. It was a masterclass in how not to communicate. And that ultimately, from an NLP way, like I was just viewing it as like people trying to communicate, and all I could do is have sympathy for the old man who was getting berated, even though he has a lot of shit that sucks. And now I'm like, oh, the way you said what you said, not that I'm fucking looking to support our current president, but the way he said what he said, even when I agreed with him, was like, oh, I can't agree with you. You're a complete dickhead.
Yeah.
So that's in an NLP way, to frame that in that way was simply just like, whoa, dude, your communication style is garbage. And no one's ever told you, hey man, tone that shit down. Show some respect.
Well, billions of dollars will serve as a kind of force field around you that will, it interrupts and interferes with your ability to get authentic feedback from people, because you can get away with, people will tolerate stuff from you.
Being the president of the United States with the Secret Service and being in charge of the military and your finger on the button. You're going to tell me what to do? You tell me what to do?
I remember hearing a business consultant expert talk about the idea that one of the most important elements of a successful organization, especially the larger that it becomes, is clear and effective feedback from the very bottom to the very top. That feedback from the top to the bottom is not as important as clear and honest feedback from the bottom to the top.
Robert Anton Wilson had a whole thing about that too, of like, if no one's calling you on your shit, then everyone's lying to you because they want you to like them. So everyone's going to lie, at which point the guy up at the top doesn't have any fucking idea what's actually going on down below. And I mean, on top of that, plus he's just like crazy narcissist.
Well, and another point in that is when you're in a position of power or leadership, people don't want to offend you or hurt your feelings or say the wrong thing because you can actually fuck up their life. And so you have to go out of your way to seek raw feedback. You have to get people to feel comfortable enough to tell you the stuff that they think you're going to be upset hearing. And Donald Trump does not have that capacity.
He's got an army of people who worship him and think he's from God. I mean, at that point you're rich, super privileged, whatever you want, like all of that. On top of that, you just talked shit and got to be president. Now you're running the world. Now people actually think you're sent from Jesus. What are you going to tell that guy?
Yeah.
So,
I'm probably going to bastardize this perspective. Sam Harris has said something to the effect of one of the most damaging and more invisible effects of the Trump presidency has been on discourse. The ability to, like, when you demonstrate that you can just lie and bully and completely make stuff up and it works, you are breaking down the fabric of civilized communication. I don't hate Trump the way that a lot of people do. I don't think that he's Hitler. I don't think that he's probably going to usher in a fascist regime, although I'm sure he would if he could, but I don't think he has that kind of power. The point to me is more, the reason why I want him out of that office is not so much that I think he's making the country significantly worse than Biden would make it better. I don't think they're going to end up that different, but I think that the effect that he's having on emboldening people who are like, oh, that works. You can just lie and make shit up and push people around. I
agree. And on the same,
that is like so damaging.
The same way on the other end, I think, burning somebody's business down because you're pissed about a thing that happened in another state, like same sort of thing. But if you want, like, the reason I brought all this crap up is what you said about discourse was this debate. It was a fucking, it was a bully and an old man, and it was just garbage to the point where it was like, I felt bad for the guy. I don't like Joe Biden. You know,
Yeah.
but I was like, dude, oh, this idiot. Like, even he's like, come on, man, would you shut up? It was sad. And oh, dude, the best part was the moderator, who I guess from Fox News, was like, Mr. Trump, no, like your 2 minutes are up. No, Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President, no. And he finally had to go, sir, I'm gonna have to say no to you. And he actually had to like say no to the guy and shut up. So I ended up realizing the only way that Trump can have a debate is in a sound booth with a microphone that can be turned off.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Because he doesn't know. There is no boundaries.
I saw you post that and I didn't get what you meant. There's no boundaries.
It's because he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't stop. And the guy's like, dude, Mr. President, and this guy's from Fox. He's like, please, just stop. I'm going to ask you that question later. Just would you please? He's like, no, Mr. President. He's like, let me finish. No, it was beyond anything. So it goes back to what you're saying, how discourse is in the toilet.
We have a viewer right now, Kevin, just said, I'm a Republican voting for Biden. Someone kill me. I'm like, man, look, I get it. Like, I'm not anti-Republican. I'm not pro-Democrat. I don't really identify with either party particularly. But I totally get that if I was a Republican, like that guy, no fucking way. Like, I can't support a blatant sociopath, you know?
Or just what he is. He shouldn't have been in office anyway. Like you have to have served the country in some way before we're just like, here's the keys to the fucking kingdom. Have a good one. Well, thanks for checking in, Kevin. Appreciate the comments. And let's move on to something non-president related.
Yeah. Woo. Well, this is going to be a gear shift. So my story for the day just happened this morning. So client called and said that they were at a business mastermind and they've spent a bunch of money to be part of this year-long business building program. And they feel like they've spent like 3 months of the 6 months that they've been in the program just spinning their wheels. So they're at this mastermind and they're like, it's time to get shit going. But they have all these triggers around the business side of the business. Like they're the kind of business person that's like, or the kind of coach, entrepreneur that they're like, I just want someone else to do the marketing for me. I just want somebody else to do that stuff. I just want to do the delivery. Mm-hmm. So we had this conversation that kind of went in two important directions. One of them was about, we started talking to the part that was getting triggered. So while this client is sitting in the masterclass and the coach is talking about all the strategies for running Facebook ads, they're just getting more and more triggered. And it's borderline phobic. Like it's a phobic response. They're sitting there and all these voices are like, you're totally unqualified. Like they're going to find out like, and so we dug down into who is this part that's getting triggered in this moment. And the part that came out was a part that had been forced to do stuff that it didn't like to do. And that went back to some very deep, very big early trauma about being forced to do things that they did not want to do and being unable to make it stop. And that trauma was so deep and not related to business at all, but comes up when this client thinks about needing to do things like math or marketing or anything that's like, but I'm not good at that. I don't like that.
Right. Nobody puts the baby in a corner.
Yeah. But it's fear. It's not like, fuck you. It's like, I'm utterly terrified of this feeling, this uncomfortable feeling that comes up when I think about being pushed into doing something I don't want to do. So there were two reframes. The first one was, this part believes that it is not possible to learn to like something that you currently don't like. In this client's mind, there were two options: find someone else to do it or do it myself, which the implication of that is I'm going to do it myself and I'm going to be fucking miserable the whole time. There's another option. And I have found in my own experience that you can't generally successfully find someone else to do it for you until you get to the place where you can do it yourself. And there's this weird paradox that often when you get to the place where you can do it yourself, then you don't have to. Then you can actually find someone else to do it. But it's kind of a moot point at that point because you've actually gotten to the place where you can do it. And the trick there is it can't be, okay, I'm going to do it and hate it the whole time. So this client is a public speaker. So I use this as an example. Imagine someone who was terrified of public speaking. And this was a good reference point because they are not terrified of public speaking. They love it. But they know other people are terrified. So it is possible for someone to not just do public speaking and, you know, throw up before and after. It's possible not only for them to get good at public speaking, it is possible for them to learn to love it. And that is true about anything that you want to acquire as a skill. It's not just learning how to do it, it's learning how to like doing it. So then the second emphasis was take the pressure off of this experience. Like this client had invested so much money and felt like there was so much riding on it that part of the reason that the panic was coming up was I have to get every penny worth of value out of everything they're saying. But all this stuff is coming up. So then they're angry with the stuff that's coming up. So the reframe was, what if the entire point of this mastermind is to bring up all this stuff? What if you forget about all the strategies, the marketing, the Facebook advertising, the accounting stuff, all the stuff that you are like, oh, I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to do that. Forget all that stuff. You can go back and listen to a recording later. Make the goal for the rest of the mastermind to go in and listen to that voice. Which you understand the point of that is now it's not the client that's triggered, it's a part of the client that's triggered,
right?
Which makes it more manageable. But then, like I said, just write down everything that part says, everything that part is triggered about. You don't even have to fix it right now. But if the whole point of the day was just to bring up the deepest wounds and insecurities so that then you can go heal them, this could be the most valuable experience. And they called me in like a panic. Like I'm on my lunch break and I don't know what to fucking do. I'm about to burst into tears in the middle of this mastermind. And by the end of it, it was like, oh yeah, okay, that's what I got to do. I gotta bring up all this stuff so that I can heal it, so that I can get to the place where I actually like this stuff.
Yeah. I like the part about taking the pressure off too. Like,
yeah,
you got a recording of it. Like,
right.
Yeah. And you can learn to love anything, even the horrible thing that was the first trauma. You know, some people can learn to love that, even as it is, let alone learn to love that it happened and grow from it and it made them.
That's it. I think there is a major threshold that you cross in life between the point when there are some things that I like and some things that I don't. And that's hardwired into me.
It's called growing the fuck up.
Well,
I don't want to do stuff. Well, get into it because you got to.
Sorry. I think that a lot of people think growing up means learning how to get yourself to do the stuff that you don't like doing. And they don't think that it means learning how to like it. They think that it means
it's learning how to just not make it a big deal. It's like fucking dishes, the laundry.
Yeah, it's got to be done. I got to do it. So
what are you
let's fucking do it.
You're gonna make a big deal for the rest of your fucking life, or you gonna? For me, it usually tends to find some gratitude in there.
Yeah,
and just do it
and make it fun. Like actually, if it's something you have to do,
like play some music, make it like, I'm not saying like whatever the thing in their past needs to like be a hunky-dory thing, but like even with all that stuff, it's like nobody wants to go to fucking high school,
right?
You know, but they do because we have to. So get into it. Why are you gonna make it worse than it has to be?
Right.
But once you realize that you have the power to control your reactions to things, which again is to me one of the most powerful things of NLP. It's why we start with get to cause. AKA take responsibility, which
Right.
requires growing the fuck up to
Right.
go, oh, I can't, oh, okay, I gotta do the thing. And then it's not so bad. Then you can just like do the thing. It's like, it doesn't have to be, there's a meme I can send you. I don't know what the hell it is. It's the guy from Twin Peaks, the weirdo who plays the mayor in Portlandia. Not, I forget his name.
I haven't seen either of those shows.
You've seen Twin Peaks?
No.
You seem like a Twin Peaks kind of guy. I don't, but it's the guy who's also in Dune. Whatever, the actor. He's always kind of weird. For some reason, he's walking through a field, and there's a person in a giant bear suit behind him.
Striptease? No, what's the stripper movie? The Paul Verhoeven one?
Yeah, maybe that's strip.
He's also in that. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Anyways, it's him, and it's like, I think actually Kevin might have Kevin Pearl Doherty, our friend here, might have posted it, and it is it's that guy, and it says me, and behind him is a guy in a bear suit, and it says like all the things that I could just do in 15 seconds that I fret over all day, or that I make such a giant fucking deal out of, that I think about for 10 times longer than if I just did it, it would be done, kind of a thing. Anyways, it's along those lines. I think that was actually Kevin's thing. I'll send it to you. So, my quote. First of all, when's the last time you read Doors of Perception? Have you read Doors of Perception?
Yes. 5 years ago.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And it's I read it probably 20 years ago, and then I just redid it on Audible recently. It's 2 hours long.
Yeah, it's super short. It's an essay.
Yeah, right. It's amazing. And it is so NLP.
Yeah.
So NLP that I'm going to read a fairly long quote, and we don't even have to talk about it much, but like, it's right along our lines. So, it's basically the same with Robert Anton Wilson, who once you take the whatevers, his was masculine. This is a stodgy British guy who's like, who's very linguistic, very well educated, who all of a sudden starts tripping balls and looks at the ruffles on his flannel pants and is finding the most beatific vision than if he looked at some other art that he was looking at, and they're just like, no, don't you get it? Don't you understand what this is? Everything, it's everything right here. So once the walls come down, once the filters are open, which brings me to reality tunnels and stuff like that. Each one of us is potentially mind at large, and he means by that reality with a capital R. But insofar as we are animals, our business is at all costs to survive. To make biological survival possible, mind at large has to be funneled through the reducing valve of the brain and nervous system. What comes out at the other end is a measly trickle of the kind of consciousness which will help us to stay alive on the surface of this particular planet. I can go on, there's more. Like, to formulate and express the contents of this reduced awareness, man has invented and endlessly elaborated those symbol systems and implicit philosophies which we call languages. Every individual is at once the beneficiary and the victim of the linguistic tradition into which he has been born. The beneficiary, in as much as language gives access to the accumulated records of other people's experience; the victim, insofar as it confirms him in the belief that reduced awareness is the only awareness, and as it bedevils his sense of reality so that he is all too apt to take his concepts for data, his words for actual things.
Boy.
Right? I mean, that's
so
NLP.
Deletion, distortion, and generalization.
That's the NLP model of the world.
Yeah.
Right?
What? How many years? How many decades before they wrote about that in NLP?
Yeah, and this is him. Each individual is at once the beneficiary and the victim of the linguistic tradition into which he has been born. I mean, that's like there's a whole section.
Yeah, I remember loving that. And I think that I read it around the time that I actually tried mescaline for the first time. So for me, going through that experience and being like, I know what he's talking about was especially profound. It made me think of two things. One is, you remember the Carl Sagan, Jodie Foster movie Contact? When
Yeah.
she's flying away and she's a scientist, and then it's so beautiful and she says they should have sent a poet. I always think about that with psychedelics, that like the most interesting brains to send on a psychedelic journey are poets, because they can come back and actually
Right.
talk about the experience far more clearly than scientists or more rationally minded
Well,
folks.
he goes on to say, most people, most of the time, know only what comes through their reducing valve, which I think is a great way that we talk about filter reality tunnels, his reducing valve, and is consecrated as genuinely real by the local language. Certain persons, however, seem to be born with a kind of bypass that circumvents the reducing valve. In others, temporary bypasses may be acquired either spontaneously or as the result of deliberate spiritual exercises, or through hypnosis, or by means of drugs.
Well, this is the thing that blew my mind so much, is I'd heard about Aldous Huxley for obviously years, and then I read the book, and then I was rereading the Patterns of Milton H. Erickson, MD, Volume 1, I believe, and I found a section in there that I had completely forgotten about, because I don't think I knew who Aldous Huxley was at that point, that talks about Erickson going and visiting Aldous Huxley and spending over a week hanging out there doing experimentation. Milton fucking Erickson sitting down with Aldous Huxley, and then apparently the story goes that Huxley's house or apartment burned down, and all the notes that he had from his whole career, including the research and all the stuff that they had done together, was lost. But in that section, Bandler and Grinder, who co-wrote the Patterns Volume 1 and 2 book, they talked about their collaboration and some of the stuff that they discussed, which was exactly around this reality tunnel. What is it? Reducing valve. I'm 100% putting that into the hierarchy of ideas section when we get to that in the NLP training.
Nice.
I love it. That's fabulous.
Very cool.
Okay, I have a quote that I opened up in my other browser and then closed it. So give me 1 second. It's good television here. Okay, so I've been looking up some Carl Rogers stuff lately. Do you know who he is? Mm-hmm. Carl Rogers is one of, I think in a list of like the 5 most important psychotherapists, Rogers is usually on that list. I believe he is... What?
Psychotherapist. He's a psychotherapist. He's a fucking psychotherapist, man. It just sounds so wrong.
I know. Bandler used to make that same joke. He's like, they're more psycho than therapist. Yeah. So Rogers was very big on the, well, I mean, I think you'll kind of get his gist in this one quote, but he talked a lot about compassion as one of the keys to helping people to really heal. He had another quote that I thought you would love, that was, the only person who is educated is the one who has learned how to learn and change. I really liked that one. But the one that I wanted to read, in my early professional years, I was asking the question, how can I treat or cure or change this person? Now I would phrase the question in this way: how can I provide a relationship which this person may use for his own personal growth?
Nice.
So I think about that a lot, not in those exact words, but I think about the Virginia Satir idea that no problem exists in isolation, that everything exists in an interconnected support system of behaviors and beliefs and people who respond and react in ways that reinforce your patterns. And when you, for some reason, when I think about the idea that I am now a part of this person's patterns, when I'm working with a client, and especially in my own personal life, in relationships and with my kids, that when I insert myself into it, instead of thinking of myself as an external observer that's not part of it, I go, oh, my responses right now are either reinforcing or not the patterns that this person is dealing with. It becomes simultaneously almost instantly overwhelming, because you can't possibly keep track of everything that you're doing. But then when you ask a question, or you refocus the way he does on what kind of relationship do I need to have with this person? What would provide them the support that they need so that they can grow through and heal through, and they can get what they didn't get? There's something there about it's almost like a next level of people aren't broken, that you're not trying to fix them, that everybody works the way that they are. I still feel like NLP has a very strong emphasis on what do I need to change? Like, I'm trying to change this person. And I get it. I get why that's the case.
Yeah, I'm sure what you just said is true. Personally, I'm always like, puzzle?
Right.
How do you get the puzzle to solve itself?
Right.
And holding the space for that. Part of that is, and what I think hypnosis is so good, even conversational hypnosis, is taking the conversation out of reality and bringing it to a special place where shit's weird. Which is why, as hokey and as blocked as I've been from stage hypnosis for whatever reasons, I see all of it in that. It's all there. And I use that as a reframe when people like hypnosis and they go on the stage. Yeah, I think they're kind of corny too. But what you don't see is that they're giving those people an excuse, a reason to try out something else. And what if, what if I could give you just a place where you could have a reason to think a different way? And that's to me what the hypnotic context is. Totally. At which point then you go to what you guys taught us was, what question could you fill with enough presuppositions to answer all the, like, what is that line Dr. Matt's saying? Or
what is the question that's so semantically packed that simply by considering the question it will dissolve the problem?
Which contains the presuppositions in, it's basically binding them to going the question mark when it's really not a question.
Yeah, even to make sense of the question means the problem would already have to be gone or loosened.
Right, or starting to loosen just by hearing the question. So I think that's along those lines, and just kind of like I said, holding space, being the weirdest guy in the room, and making people feel safe to just let whatever demon out, or whatever the thing is that they think is so terrible, when it's really just a scared little kid for the most part.
Well, that makes you make a good point about the weirdest person in the room. When it says, how can I provide a relationship which this person may use for his own personal growth? That often looks like compassion and gentleness and asking questions, really attentive listening, and support and reassurance. And it also a lot of times looks like the weirdest person in the room. Like a lot of times.
The thing you said last time, fine. Okay, Jesus, we're going to stick you up, bud. Here we go.
Right. That was the relationship that would allow him to grow.
Right. So,
Nice. All right, cool. Well, then let me go to Facebook and look up that question. Denise, the book title that we were referencing is The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley.
Which is
okay.
So where the doors got their name from.
Our buddy Jake asked me a question. He sent it. He DM'd this to me. I've heard you guys talking about a breakthrough session. Is that just a session where your clients really break through their shit, or is it the crescendo of a specific process that you have going on with your style of Kung Fu?
Yes.
So Yes, both. And it is referencing something specific in my particular school of NLP that I come from. And I will tell you that the breakthrough session process is pretty vague in general. Like, it basically follows your standard model for transformation, which is, what do you want? Where are you now? Where do you want to get to? And then what's in the way? And then you dig in to that. There is some more thought into it, but it's almost just a checklist of run people through all kinds of things. In my mind, when I say breakthrough session, what I mean is an extended therapeutic intervention. Extended can mean, for me, a mini breakthrough is like 3 to 5 hours. Anything less than that is just a session. You're just doing a session with somebody. But over 3 to 5 hours, I would call a mini breakthrough. And then anything above 5 or 6 hours is a breakthrough session, which can be all day. But I know there's one of my colleagues, Jamie Smart, who I'm a big fan of. His methodology is he does huge packages, like $30,000 for a year of coaching. And it starts with a 3-day breakthrough session where for 3 days you go to a resort and you stay there and you'll spend 6 or 7 hours each day together doing work, and then go and do exercises and meditate, and then come back the next day and do it again. There is something profound about the level of transformation that you can create in a short period of time. It's like the equivalent number of hours. 8 1-hour sessions is not the same as 1 8-hour session.
Right.
1 8-hour session is going to be, in many cases, more transformational.
Yeah, exactly. Because most people, and I don't do them that long anymore, because the people I work with, they don't have the time. They run away from 8 hours.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm like, you go to work for fucking 10 hours a day doing shit you hate. You can't think about yourself for 8 hours and sit at home and think about yourself? No, I can't do that. So
also, virtual 8 hours is not a good idea. I don't do long ones like that unless it's in person.
Yeah, I've shortened mine considerably, and through sort of fine-tunery, get the big stuff done, like get them through, and then we can still work on some stuff as we move forward. But mostly it's people, and again, I'm not poo-pooing therapy, but most people who have come to see me and haven't had something like that have never even heard of having like a 3-4 hour session. What? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because they go to the therapist goes, tell me more. What does that feel? How did that feel? They shake the snow globe, and then they're like, okay, see you next week. And then the guy's like, okay, all you did was like flick the fucking thing, and now, okay, see you next week. Okay, see you next week. Like, at some point you have to hold their feet to the fire,
right? And
seriously go, no, put your attention back on the thing you've been running away from.
Right.
You're gonna keep looking at it until you realize it, whatever it needs to realize, and then you are broken through. Once you are no longer running away, and you're running to.
Mm-hmm.
Patent pending, copyright 2000.
So breakthrough session is a specific breakthrough session is a specific term that is referring to a specific process. And I will tell you that specific process is pretty vague when you really look at it. Yeah. And it mostly follows the relatively standard therapeutic model of, what do you want? Where are you now? Where do you want to get to? What's in the way? And then there's different processes, but ultimately it's about finding the root cause. It's the idea is like, you're starting with surface level presenting problems, and then you're digging down under the surface and you're finding contributing problems that are the underlying patterns behind those surface problems.
It can take an hour to get down. And for me, my intake eats a lot of the 2 hours of whatever.
Me too.
So by the time we're in it, we've already covered, here's the greater problem. But most people will go, I'm tired of this. And I'm like, but that's not the problem. And I've had how many people have you had who've been like, oh, I came to see him for this, but we ended up working on this. And it made all, like, I didn't even realize that was the thing. Because it takes that long to get through. They got to tell their story because they're like, here's my story. And then you're like, okay. And then you have to find the thing. And deeper down, like, what's the thing? What are the 1, 2, 3 things that really are holding up this pattern?
Yeah.
And then help them break through it. And, you know, I'm very grateful for the way that TEP taught it to me. I don't have that kind of time for it anymore. And I think with certain
8-hour sessions,
techniques and things.
Well, no, but you're still doing it. Cause like that point that you make is like, you moved one of my coaching coaches, that came out weird. He used to say, it's the diagnosis that sells. I love that phrase. He's like, the thing that will get somebody to buy from you is not what you're going to give them. It's when you can identify their problem and you can explain their problem in a way that no one with a level of clarity where they go, oh, I've never thought of it that way. They will sign up with you. It's the best sales experience that you can give them. And the way you do that is dig down. I always think of it as an upside down triangle, that it's all the surface problems here, the presenting problems, the contributing problems, and the root problems or problem. And you want to get all the way down to that bottom thing. And when you get there, that's the thing that when you pull it out, all the rest of the stuff starts falling down.
Speaking of pulling it out, I also call it a brainisectomy.
Brainisectomy?
Brainisectomy.
Yeah, I like that too.
Which is pulling your head out of your ectomy.
Yep.
Okay. Did we tell Jake that we were doing this again?
I did.
Okay, good.
I let him know ahead of time, yeah.
Good.
Denise says, when you mentioned running away, Denise said, but running away is considered exercise, right?
Yes, I know, right? I love, I've said that to some of my weight loss clients. It's like, surprised you haven't lost so much weight considering how hard you're running away.
Keep running away from your problems. Maybe you'll get in good shape. Adrienne says the problem is almost never the problem, and the goal they think they want is also different by the end of the session. That's very true.
Exactly, because they need to be just like me.
Yeah, they didn't know that when they came in, but by the end, they know.
Yes.
Morgan is the ideal. Must strive to be like Morgan. What would Morgan do?
We are Morgan. Yes. All right. Well, hi, Adrienne. Okay. Well,
I think that's it.
Too cool.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So same bat time, same bat channel.
Same bat shit crazy.
Okay. Peace, love, and NLP, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Laters.
Laters.